Good morning, everybody. So in this video, I want to show you how to use the Bacon Bond, or sometimes it's called oven baked clay adhesive. Sometimes some of the bottles call it Bacon Bond, but both are by Sculpey. It's exactly the same thing. How to make it into something that looks more like either frosting or something that looks more like syrup or something like that, using some of the clay and then some of the Bacon Bond or the oven bake adhesive to make it work. Now there are directions on both the bottle and this package. So instructions: squeeze onto surface, press pieces together, bake at 275 for 30 minutes. Oven baked clay adhesive must be baked to adhere. So, this is only to be used for Sculpey, and your pieces of Sculpey can either be pre-baked or they can be, still squishy clay. But for this type of adhesive to work, this glue to work, you have to bake it in the oven. So you can't use it on other things. You can't just like glue a couple pieces of paper together or anything like that. It doesn't work that way. So what I want to show you is I've added on here, this one I've already baked, but I mixed some of this blue color with the Bacon Bond, and then I baked it. So you can kind of see it looks kind of liquidy almost, or it will if it was on something, right? And this is what it looks like before I baked it, but these are the same things. I'm going to show you how to kind of make that, because if you added this in onto, something that you were making, you could make it, if it was a different color, you could make it look like syrup or some type of, topping or something like that. But I did want to show you, this right here is unbaked, and this right here has been baked. So you can kind of see this one looks a little bit lighter, just slightly lighter than the finished color, what it's going to end up as. And same thing for this one. Like this, I used a really dark charcoal color, almost black, to mix it with the white. And you can kind of see like the Bacon Bond on its own just gives like a real slight color to it, but it's mostly clear once it's baked. But you can see on there, like it again does the same thing where it starts off looking a little bit, it's hard to see on the tin foil. This is why I don't video with tin foil. But it's a little bit lighter on this side, and then it bakes a little bit darker. And I've also got another one that I added on a little less of the Bacon Bond on to make it look more like frosting and less like, syrup or something. Like if I did this with a brown color, maybe I'll do that. So it'll look like chocolate syrup or something like that. So I want to show you how to mix those real quick. So when you do this, you really only need a really tiny, 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 tiny bit of clay. So I'm going to use a little bit of brown. You want to work on top of your tin foil for this one. I wouldn't do paper for this just because it kind of is goopy. So the easiest way I've found is to really flatten out that super teeny piece of polymer clay and stick it on there. It doesn't even have to be, super neat, but you want to make small amounts of this at a time. And then I'm just going to squeeze one little drop of the Bacon Bond onto my clay. If you try to do a big chunk all at once, then it doesn't work very well. It just is really hard to do. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle tool and see how I'm holding it so I can really squish it flat against the table. And I'm just going to kind of like mush this around. Now I did a very small amount of the clay adhesive, right? So this right here would look more like chocolate frosting. So I just kind of mixed it around a little bit, and you can kind of see it's just a smear, right? But I could take this, and if I frosted something that looked like a little piece of cake, it would look like cake, right? But it'd be chocolate frosting on cake. But if I add a little bit more of the Bacon Bond, let's see. Oop, there it goes. I just didn't have the thing open all the way. But if I add more of the Bacon Bond and keep on mixing, it looks whiter right now, but it'll bake darker than it is right now. But I can add a little bit more of the Bacon Bond, keep mixing it, and now it'll look, make sure you don't have any chunks. It'll look more like chocolate syrup. So if I applied it, you know, to something that was like a little ice cream or something, then I could make it look like chocolate syrup. So you can see this is like way more liquidy consistency, and it will kind of like have a shiny smooth finish as opposed to that one's hard to see, the more frosting like finish. Okay, so all it is, you know, just kind of mushing the clays together. And if you start off with something really flat, it's a little bit easier to do it more quickly. Make sure you have some type of, you know, paper towel or something that you can wipe your tool off. You don't want to leave it on your tool forever. But then you can use this, and you could, you know, if you have something that looks like a little piece of cake, you could be like, I'm gonna frost my cake. So maybe I'm gonna use this darker one because it'll show up on the cake. So now I mixed this one up earlier, so let me just kind of get it conditioned. So if I was gonna apply frosting onto my cake, I could take a big old chunk of my frosting like this, and I could stick it on here and just kind of frost my cake. And because it has a little bit more liquidy stuff in it, I can kind of smush it around and really make it look like it's actually frosting, like it has some texture to it and everything. So I could add this on, I could make it as smooth as I wanted, or I could leave it, you know, kind of fancy. I could make little swirls or whatever, right? But now this looks a lot more like it has some frosting on it, right? And I can kind of spend some time adding some little frostingy little detaily things. And once that's baked, those will stay hard and they'll stay in that little design, right? So now if I wanted to do like the filling, so say for some reason I had, oh, maybe I'll use this chocolate that I just made, right? So if I wanted to do a side filling, now the side filling is not going to be as thick as this top stuff, right? So I could take some of this really thin liquidy stuff that I made, and I could add that on into the middle. Now this is really close in color, so I would probably choose a different color, but even just having a smoother texture here can actually make it look like frosting or filling, even though it's kind of the same color. But see how like even just adding that line, where that line is a little more smooth and shiny, it looks like there's chocolate filling inside of a chocolate cake. And if I textured the cake areas first, if I gave that filling and had a textured cake area, and then I used the thicker stuff right there, that would look super cakey, right? So that's how you can make the liquidy or the more frostingy looking stuff with a little bit of the Sculpey and a little bit of the Bacon Bond, or it's also called the oven bake clay adhesive. But always make sure to follow the directions on the bottle for baking. You don't want to bake this at too high of a temperature, okay? All right, thanks everybody. Be creative and have a great day.